In this video, I will focus on importing existing assets to your NRG project. First thing we're going to do, we're going to create a new project using the default template. I'm going to leave the project name as untitled, and I'm simply going to specify that the project path is on my desktop. Create my project. I got a scene, I got a camera, a render layer, and a script to clear my screen. Using the left button, I'm going to select the camera and push it back a little because when I'm about to import, it's going to be located right here. So basically, to import things into your 3D project, you need to have the library selected. A various amount of formats are supported for texture, video, sound, shaders, and so on. If you want to have more information about which format are supported precisely, you can go in Help and click the Editor manual, which will open your default browser, and under the Library Asset menu, you will be able to see all the extensions that are supported. If I go in example on Fragment Shader, I will see that the .vsh is supported, .fsh is supported, Compute Shader, CSH. If I go for video buffer, I'm going to see that the OGV format is supported for texture as well, and so on. You can have basically a rundown as you are checking a precise asset of the extension that will be supported. If the extension of that asset is supported, all you have to do with the library selected, I'm going to go in File, and I got my test scene that it's here, but I'm going to go in the texture folder now, and I'm simply going to drag and drop one texture asset to my library. As I drop, I will have the specific dialog for the asset that I want to import. We also have another alternative of instead of importing all the asset one by one, we can always export a scene in one shot, in one batch. And after that, for the specific asset that we're missing, we can always drag and drop them back. Like an example for sound, generally 3D software does not provide any way to specify a sound file and then have it exported. Usually the kind of export format that are available are like Wavefront, OBJ, FBX, Kaleda. And us in NRG, we are supporting Kaleda by default since it is a standard and it's supported by most of the major 3D software, 3D creation software. So for that, we're going to go in Blender, and this is basically the scene that I'm going to import in my NRG project. I got a simple floor, a couple of cubes, a texture, and two light, and a cube map in the back. I'm going to go on File, Export, Kaleda, and I'm going to make sure that I'm not going to copy the texture. By default, it is on, and my texture are right there. If I export my Kaleda file inside this directory, all the files from my texture will be copied back. Basically, the importer, the Kaleda importer built into the NRG editor, will scan your directory from the root where your Kaleda file is, and will find where are these assets that have been connected into the Kaleda file. So I'm going to click Export, and I'm having my scene that is exported. I'm going to go back in my NRG editor, select, make sure that my library is selected, and I'm going to go back on my file explorer here. I am currently on Linux, but it really doesn't matter. It works the same way on Windows and on Mac. If you're working on a tablet, a mobile device, you can simply go from Asset and Import and manually select the directory. But right now, we are going to simply drag and drop. With our library selected, we are simply going to drag and drop the Kaleda file right here, and we have our import Kaleda dialog. There's many options here at the top that can be toggle with that can be adjusted, toggling each and every tab. I'm not going to go through that right now. For the next tutorial, we're going to realize that even if Kaleda is exporting the scene, the geometry, the texture, the materials, the lighting, the lights, there's still, like a few things that we want and have to be specified manually, and you're going to be able to do that from this panel here. Well, I'm going to click import, a little bit of processing, and my scene, exactly the way I left it in Blender, is inside my project. Now that I have my scene integrated inside my project, let's take a look of what exactly have been imported from that Kaleda file. In my library, as you can see, now I'm having folders. By default, the import process will create a folder for each and every type of assets that have been imported. If at least there is one, a folder will be created if it doesn't exist already. If we take a look at the material folder, we can see that we got all the different material for each and every triangle list that we have been importing. In mesh, we're going to have all the different mesh imported. Shaders, by default, shaders are, there is no shader export. So basically, just to get us started, the NRG editor create for us a basic shader that is just placing our geometry in space, and use the material that have been imported and the texture that is connected to that material, and then simply draw the pixel on screen. In texture, all the texture that have been connected to a material. This scene look very dull right now. There's not much going on. We are going to start working our way to make that scene be rendered and draw the way we want. But by default, just to get us started, we already have a good preview, a good overview of how our scene will look like using a just plain rasterizer.